Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Jared Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Corporal Anthony Robb. We welcome the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families who love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read just one of the stories behind one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Corporal Harold Paul Verdon. Harold Verdon was born in 1897 to Stephen and Bridget Verdon of Victoria. His mother owned a greengrocer's in Merbau North for 30 years and was considered the mother of the town. She was Harold's sole parent from the age of about 8, as his father was an alcoholic who left the family. Harold was the second youngest of 9 sons and had also a sister. He was educated at the local state school in Merbau North and went on to work as a clerk in the local post office. Harold was the second of 4 brothers to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force, doing so a month before his 19th birthday in January 1916. His training in Australia seems to have been delayed by sickness, and by the time he was getting ready to depart for overseas service, his brother James had joined the artillery. Harold went into the infantry, joining the same battalion as his older brother William, the 21st. In August, the two went home for a visit together in uniform and were later sent overseas a month apart, Harold leaving in October and James in late November. As soon as Private Harold Verdon arrived in England, he sought information about his brother William. Initially hearing that the 6th Brigade had suffered heavy casualties, he wrote, "I thought perhaps Will had been wounded and sent to England. AIF headquarters, however, told me that Will was still going strong." Harold took leave in London, making the most of his time visiting the theatre and other attractions, and later wrote home that the people here cannot do enough for the Australians. Private Harold Verdon was sent to France to join his battalion in February 1917. However, instead of having the joyful reunion with his brother Will that he was hoping for, he discovered that Will had been killed in action just a few days before Christmas. After a few months in France, he was able to write home to say, "You'll be pleased to hear that I found Will's grave. I will send you a photo of it in about a fortnight." Harold and his brother James decided not to try to get into each other's units in case a single battle saw them both killed, but they managed to write to and visit each other reasonably regularly. In early 1917, the 21st Battalion took part in the vicious fighting around the French village of Bapaume. Harold wrote, "I have been in the firing line rather continuously of late. Our brigade was the first to reoccupy the town of Bapaume. We had a bit of a stunt with Fritz last week in capturing a village, and I was fortunate enough to get through it safely. I got a bullet through the breeches, but it never touched my leg." In May 1917, Harold Verdon was promoted to Lance Corporal, but shortly afterward fell ill and was sent to England, suffering from trench fever. He rejoined his battalion on the Western Front in November 1917 and was promoted to full corporal a few months later. He was a popular member of his company and a keen participant in any battalion sports competition he could find. In April 1918, the 21st Battalion was drawn into the desperate fight to stop advancing German infantry during their spring offensive. From that point, the battalion would go on to participate in the answering British offensive, which became known as the 100 Days, and would lead to the end of the war. The 21st Battalion would suffer so many casualties that by the time it was withdrawn from the front line in October, it could scarcely muster a single company. On the 30th of August 1918, the 2nd Australian Division attacked and captured the key position of Mont Saint-Quentin near the town of Peyron. The 21st Battalion was in close reserve to this operation and took part in the fighting as the division pushed on towards Peyron. At some point in the fighting, probably on the 2nd of September 1918, Corporal Harold Verdon was hit in the abdomen by enemy machine gun fire. He was taken to a first aid post, but died after only a few minutes there. Lieutenant Colonel Duggan wrote to Mrs. Verdon in Australia, "It is difficult for me to say all that can be said of the winning ways and passive strength and beauty of your son's character. He was beloved by all. As a soldier, he was gallant unto death. In all operations since your son joined the battalion, He has shown indomitable courage, and at sports and in the daily routine, he often came under my notice for his cheerful and kindly disposition. Today, Corporal Harold Verdon lies in the Hem Farm Military Cemetery, just across the river from where he was killed, under the simple inscription, RIP. He was 21 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal Harold Paul Verdon, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere, or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you all for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.